Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of The X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is the not quite got the memo for No Shave November,
Paul. Hello, everyone.
How you doing, Paul? So, to answer your question that you asked me, or you kind of mentioned before we started recording, that's the reason why I shaved.
I see now.
Yeah.
No mortal man will ever shave my beard as long as I can help it.
How long did it take you to grow that?
Actually, so I've had to style it and trim it a lot since then, so it's not nearly as long as it would be. It'd probably be down to here if I had to. But I've had a beard since maybe 2015, 2014 of some shape. It was a lot closer, and I did that fake jawline thing. And then since this happened, probably was around 2018, 2019. So the entire length of time that you've known me, I started growing out my beard, and I kept it around like this. So maybe like 2, 3, 4 years.
So if you were to like shave it all off, it would take years for it to grow back up.
It would take me at least 1 year to get anything close to what I like now. But yeah.
Well, the fun thing is, as we go through this month, you'll see how fast I can go back to how I looked last week. So I kind of did that back in when I shaved back in our first few episodes back. That happened to me. But I did it because I messed up my trim. So I was like, F it, take it out. Because I know by a week it's going to be back. So
yeah.
And now this is No Shave November. So I'm going to go all out. Like, I usually trim my neck beard, but I'm going to do it like all at once just to kind of save time. You know,
respect.
So let's see how much I take it. Plus, down here we're finally at a point where the weather now is gonna start cooling off because we get the north winds. So
yeah, what does it actually get to for y'all?
A low of 64. It's nothing.
That's kind of like for us as well.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's
we
literally
get
nothing.
Lucky sometimes in like January where it gets down to 50. But it's usually like bursts of like 60 degrees.
I will say though, when I went to college in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because weather there could go down to 40s, 30s, rare occasions 20s. When I would come back home for Christmas break and I would see people with 70-degree weather, it was like, we need to pull out the sweaters. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is nothing. Literally nothing.
I want to so badly whenever it gets to the 70s. Just because I love the feeling of hoodies and jackets and stuff, and I want it so bad. So I can kind of feel for some people, but yeah, you don't need a jacket until it's like in the 50s.
I know. I loved embracing sweater weather back there when I was in college because I get too hot here because I'm a hairy dude, and my home country's hella hot most of the time, with the exception of when we get rains, which we still are getting some, but not like last year where we're getting hurricane rains, like that category 5 hurricane that hit Nicaragua, but we were saved from that. Yeah. So, by the way, can you believe we're in November now? Yeah, happy November, people. Also happy to post Halloween. We're recording 2 days after Halloween. We should be recording 1 day, but things happened to me. So
true. And in 6 days I will have been married for 1 year.
That's insane. That's
I know.
Absolute insanity. And then you're going on vacation around your honeymoon anniversary, right? Or your marriage anniversary. I don't.
It's just a little after the wedding anniversary. So technically the same week as I did my honeymoon. Yeah.
All right. That works. Especially it's not like we have a global catastrophe still happening. So, but you were able to do it with that happening last year. So why not? It's just part of our daily lives. So in that week that you'll be gone, I will either have to recruit one of our 2 guys, either PJ again or Zach, to kind of join me in, or we finally are going to do what we said we were going to do, which is record an evergreen episode that's going to be non-traditional from the usual what have we been playing, plus a topic and the news in a specific week. We could just do like a topic, and that's what goes live the week you'll be done. So just a little housekeeping for that, just in a week or two of what may be happening. And also just ahead of time, like, we are planning on stopping recording this year halfway through December, but don't worry, because we're also going to be recording some evergreen stuff that is going to be going live in the weeks that we'll be off. We'll be off on vacation and just come back in January. So we may be getting a break, but the Xbox won't take a break. We'll still be going live and stuff. And by the way, I just have to give a shout out to PJ for finally joining us for that long discussion, finally, like no holds barred discussion about Metroid Dread. I'll say this, even a week later, I'm shocked that it was as positive as it was. I was expecting some heat because
I was preparing for
because
it.
yeah, just to put it out there, like, because we don't just talk here in podcasts, we have a group chat where we text. And the thing with our friend PJ is that it feels like he's so much better at making his point when you're actually talking to him. In text, he's very aggressive, and I think he misses nuance. That's why we were expecting, like, after we recorded the news last week, I was like, yeah, let's get ready, here we're going to war. But it wasn't like that, and I love that because I thought it was a very constructive conversation, and he showed more nuance than I would have expected from someone that has been just like showering that game to its praises. And I appreciate that. So now I know we have a disagreement. I'm going to cut that off and be like, come to the podcast. We're going to talk it out. Because
we're going to talk about this.
Yes. Or maybe it was because we didn't have Zach. And it seems like Zach has soured on that game even more since he beating it. So maybe that's what we were missing. We were not quite as negative.
Yeah,
so.
I just say both of us ended up giving ground on it between PJ and I, because I was pretty much like, I'm never coming back to this game. I'm good. And thanks to PJ, I decided, I was like, no, I'll try it one day again. And I admitted that a few things were mostly because of like my personal struggles, rather than like maybe a bad game design choice, especially with our lovely the article written on
Washington
Post.
What
was his name? Yeah,
Gene Park.
Well, not just that, the guy that had trouble with the he was the original God of War guy.
Yeah, it was in that same article. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, anyway, that guy, at least I didn't struggle as much as he did, apparently. But at the same time, PJ kind of came to my side a little with like a few aspects of different things, like my if you jump, you shouldn't just jump straight up, you should still do your spin. And he's like, I absolutely agree. And I went, you do?
Yeah.
What? But I think through that, I kind of came around a little bit to it, and also the series in general. I'd love to talk to Zach again sometime on all that, but also, I mean, still props to him for finishing the game even before I did, because he clearly pulled the skills together to make it happen.
Yeah, you both were in the same hard spot almost at the same time. He did it first, and then you happened. So yeah, hopefully we can get him in. Maybe not this week, but maybe one of these other weeks, so he can just talk about it, because he's also playing other stuff. So yeah, enough of that preamble, because then we can just talk games and what have we've been playing. We got some news. So like I mentioned, we usually record this on Mondays. I had a hell of a week. Hell with capital H, where I couldn't come back in time for recording. So good thing I had to force a day off today so we can. And also, thankfully, today's a holiday here in El Salvador, actually.
Really? What holiday is it?
Today is Day of the Dead.
Oh, shoot. Today is.
Yes, but keep in mind, Day of the Dead, like Dia de los Muertos for Mexico, is like in May. Yeah. Ours is on November.
Okay.
November 2nd, so
I would love to pick your brain on that at some point, and like the differences and how that plays out for y'all.
Yeah, like some people have different Independence Days. Like a couple of our countries around here, we all have like the same Independence Day or around the same time compared to others. It's an interesting culture discussion you can have. What's funny is that I have mostly forgotten a lot about my own culture, because I've so embraced a lot of American culture with my language and all that, but fun conversations to have. So thankfully we get to record it, and a lot of news broke on Monday. Plus, I was like, oh my god, it just kept getting more and more and more. I kept just posting. I was like, this is insane. So it's gonna be a recap of 3 important things from the previous week, plus the things that broke on Monday, because might as well just talk them now. So, Paul, press X.
For some news.
All right, so number 1, Paul. This broke very late at night on Sunday. I was like, oh my god. So, Microsoft and Sega have announced a next generation strategic alliance, which is an agreement for an alliance that will create an environment for Sega to produce large-scale global games built on Microsoft's Azure cloud platform. If this sounds familiar to you, it's because Sony Corporation also signed a memorandum of understanding back in 2019 with Microsoft to also use that technology. So more people using that cloud technology that Microsoft has developed, and they have basically put them in the same battle as Amazon and Google, just for context of who has like big cloud technology. Basically, Sega is using Microsoft technology to build their games for the future. It doesn't mean they're in an exclusive deal with Microsoft. So it's like, we're working with you, so now we're making just exclusives for you. No, they're just using the technology. But it's a sign their relationship is strengthening from here on out. And guaranteed, this means you'll see Sega's future games output to always show up on Xbox now, where sometimes their games wouldn't show up. Look at Persona. That's even though that's Atlas, Sega owns Atlas. So
yeah,
what do you think of that? Like, Microsoft has that big technology that all these developers are like, we want that. We want to use that.
I can't wait for the Master Chief skin in the next Sonic game.
Wouldn't that be great? Or in the next NFT?
Yeah, oh God, we're not going to talk about that.
Not yet.
I mean, I'm happy for it. I mean, this is just another example of developers kind of working together and doing something that works for them. Sega has kind of carved their own little niche, but they're still, I think, reeling from the struggles that they've had in the last decade or two. And the fact that Microsoft is kind of benevolently handing down some technology that they clearly would like to take advantage of is going to benefit both of them, it sounds like. And especially when they're saying very clearly that they're not going to do exclusives.
Mm-hmm. For now. Yeah, I agree that usually they always start off with that saying, don't worry guys, it's not going to be exclusive, and then you blink and Sega's owned by Microsoft or something. But at least for now, it seems like good. It's good news and positive reinforcement for this industry. Yeah, this is like, you know how, like, for example, Sony, they usually have strong relationships with the people that they end up buying in a way.
Yeah. Maybe
this could be like the beginning of planting a seed for maybe like an even more deeper acquisition in the future, because I know that one thing Microsoft has mentioned is that despite them having gobbling up all this massive amount of studios in like short amount of time, they've always emphasized that Japan has always been a very particular weak spot for them. They don't have a foothold in that market. They don't have like a very strong developer other than right now Tango Games Works, which is the guys that did the Evil Within. And obviously that came just in proxy because they bought they bought ZeniMax, the Bethesda came all over, and every Bethesda owned studio came with that. So maybe this is their way to finally have like a stronger foothold. And the thing is that Microsoft and Sega have been working a lot over the last 2 years. They brought Phantasy Star Online 2, a game that came out like in 2012 on PC, just exclusive in Japan. Came out like almost 8 to 9 years later, finally to the US. Be a partnership they made that you can play that game on Xbox, and it's old AF. And Yakuza Like a Dragon, they managed to sign an exclusive so that the Xbox Series X version came out first a few months before a native PS5 version, even though there was a PS4 version that launched at the same time. So they've been kind of working, and this seems like it's strengthening the relationship, but it's doing it now more in a more fundamental way. That reminds me a lot of the rumors we heard about Kojima signing like a letter of intent of also using Microsoft's tech with like the cloud tech that they built.
That's
so
true.
Maybe this is the generation where we finally see the next evolution in game design being the cloud, because I don't think that has been a thing right now. All that's been next gen is better frame rates, better graphics, which is, you know, traditional, what you would expect, not the most exciting thing. So who knows? Maybe this is future proofing.
I'm hoping that cloud gets used a little more. I really need it to be more practical for me to think it's going to really kick off because of the lag and the process behind all that. But I mean, we've seen things that look like walls in the industry saying, oh, that's never going to get topped, and then the next generation rolls around and they figured out a way around it. So I think if there's something that can be done, I think cloud technology is going to be it.
Yeah, I just want more like innovation happening within like consoles or gaming in general. Innovation is what keeps us falling. Is what keeps us like energized for what's coming. Because eventually, if all we're just getting is better graphics, better frame rates. That's just not as exciting. Eventually you hit a plateau. So hopefully, especially with Sega, that they literally have nothing other than Yakuza and Persona. And Persona they just basically have by proxy of them acquiring Atlus. Like Sonic has just been a complete utter disaster for them, with the exception of the fan-made Sonic Mania that they acquired from Christian Whitehead, like completely crapping all over the Team Sonic output, and so many dormant franchises that they're not doing anything with. Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, many more. So maybe this can give them some financial stability having that tech, because they don't have to be developing their own tech. They're using something else. They can find some innovation. Who knows? Working with Microsoft that way, I think is going to be exciting, and I can't wait to see what's next.
I agree.
Number 2. Following the immense success of 2016's Doom and its sequel, Doom Eternal, id Software is reportedly hiring for work on a long-running iconic action FPS. Reported by IGN, this article theorizes that the only other real option that fits this description would be Quake. This has left those who remember the frenetic shooter series immensely excited for a possible single-player reboot of the franchise that hasn't had an entry since 2017 with Quake Champions, which was multiplayer only.
Yes.
On Game Pass, I played the original Quake. It's very Doom-like. Like, it's very... Yeah. It's insane how similar the two franchises are, with the difference was that Quake was the first shooter that gave you full 3D aiming. The original Dooms were static. You can only look left and right. This one looks all over the place. And while Doom is exclusively a you're a marine fighting demons, Quake is about, like, there's also demons, but there's also more HP Lovecraft, Cthulhu-like monsters that you fight. It's like more
There's a lot going on in Quake, isn't there?
Yes, and Quake was also very instrumental in id Software developing deathmatch as a thing that became standard in all multiplayer. They started with Doom, the original ones, and then Quake further developed that idea. That's why Quake Champions became just a multiplayer only thing. It had some roots with Doom really setting the standard for multiplayer, but as a single player thing, there hasn't been a Quake thing since Quake 4 in 2005 in the Xbox 360 launch, and that game was not good. Also,
I heard.
Yeah, it wasn't even made by id. It was done by Raven Software with Activision. So yeah, it wasn't that great. It wasn't that great of a of like an experience, even though a lot of people enjoyed it on proxy of, you know, when sometimes you buy something at launch, you buy everything just because it's at launch and you want something to play. It had that advantage, but compared to a game like Call of Duty 2 that still holds up really well these days, that was also at launch, Quake 4 didn't. And Doom and Doom Eternal are such great campaigns. You haven't played Doom Eternal?
Nope.
Yeah, it's been on sale very often for $20.
I know.
You can jump in.
One day maybe.
Yeah, one day. I mean, there's also Black Friday coming, so there may be a further sale down the road. The 2016 Doom campaign, for what it was, that one was perfect. I liked Doom Eternal slightly less, even though it's still an incredible game. I've gone at length that the Marauder of that game took that game from a 10 to a 9 for me, because it just broke the flow for me, but it's still such a great frenetic shooter. And if they do the same thing for Quake Champions, because what's fun is that Wolfenstein was also the other series that id Software did. It was actually... Wolfenstein was first, but they gave Wolfenstein to Machine Games, so it's not going to work on that. So the next best thing is Quake. Can't wait to see. And also keep in mind, this may not come to PlayStation.
If I'm being entirely honest, I'm probably okay with it, mostly because I don't even know what I'm missing out on. Quake was always the weird stepchild that I would see posters for. I would see like the
circular
strange...
queue, right? Like
I would see the licensed stuff. I remember when Quake Champions was announced, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that name of that series, but it's a first-person shooter that was really big back in the day, and I wasn't playing back in the day, so it never really meant anything to me. So they would really have to do something crazy to get me interested.
To me, just looking like Doom 2016 would make go a long way. There's a reason that campaign is so beloved. So, and also this will also give you a reason to stick on Game Pass if you have like a PC, because if they're starting development, this is now a next gen thing. So your Xbox One's gonna, it's already squeaking as we speak. So
That's
like
I'm not going to be playing too much on Xbox.
yeah,
It's gonna have to be on PC.
exactly. So, and I'm wanting any reason to like upgrade to a Series X or an S. So, more reason for me to jump in eventually. So, number 3, we should label a section of this new section just under the category of Ubisoft, because after many weeks it's still like they keep getting in the news in like the worst possible way. So as if they heard the recent reputation update as publisher with no interest in listening to fans unless it's for cheap cash grabs and took it as a personal challenge, Ubisoft recently stated that they're interested in blockchains and NFTs as a method of developing games moving forward. Specifically, they're interested in the concept of using a play to earn model that, and I quote, that will enable more players to actually earn content, own content, and grow the industry quite a lot, as spoken by Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot. This is a move that is already gaining traction online as the dumbest thing they've done yet, due to how easy it is to scam consumers and damage the environment using blockchains and NFTs. However, the pushback has not seemed to slow down their interest in this new method of presenting media. Jesus Christ Almighty. Just last week, I think it was last week, there seemed to be a slightly glimmer of hope. BGC reported, Splinter Cell is finally coming back. And then we said this seems like a monkey's paw because we've been wanting this for so long. But do we want it with this Ubisoft? A Ubisoft that is literally wanting to implement something that Steam banned from its store. You can't buy anything from Steam that even remotely dabbles with blockchains and NFTs. Trying to even understand the concept of blockchains and NFTs has just been a nightmare. Obviously, you tweeted an amazing thing that compared to gachas in a way. And even still, it just feels like the whole concept of NFTs has stink all over it. It's like, it makes me shudder of the idea of this like grabbing a foothold in the industry. You read the thing that I posted, right? It was like this article from Bloomberg that made an analogy of Mario Kart and how it would work with an NFT. Yeah. It sounded like the most dystopian shit that would, to me, completely ruin gaming.
Yeah.
For the sake of money. Like, what do you think of this garbage?
It is such a slippery slope, and the problem is that I can understand why people in this specific either personality type or type of business model is interested in, because they want the raw capitalism idea of fully owning and truly owning a piece of media that is unable to be replicated or redone anywhere
unless they sell it.
Unless they sell it for some ridiculous amount of cash. Business people love that concept, the being able to actually own something. But the problem is art in itself is unable to be owned. So they've tried to fabricate a concept that allows them to literally own something. However, it does not work in practicality. I'll go ahead and jump into my baby's first explanation of blockchains for you, and I understand why they're trying to use it. The idea being that everyone has what is called a blockchain, meaning that it has 3 different sides to it. It's got the code of everything that you actually want in it. It's got the code of what came before it, which creates a chain of whatever came before. The idea is that if anybody comes in and says they try to steal it or whatever, that creates a fingerprint which changes all of the coding behind it. It's like DNA, if you want to think of it like that. Each chain has to have a specific number and letter code to match in with the next one. They're thinking, hey, there's absolutely no way anyone can ever fabricate this or replicate it or do whatever, so it's a perfect method of keeping whatever your media is yours, unless somebody figures out how to calculate it.
Doesn't that sound like the most horrendous thing in the world? Of like, imagine there's only one game you could own and only one person can own it. That's basically the basis of what NFT, the concept of NFTs and blockchains would do, inserted into gaming. It's
the point of a piece of art if you cannot share it?
I feel this finally confirms more than anything that Ubisoft is in trouble.
Yeah.
Look at just all these methods that they have just been falling in to try to make like a quick cash grab, like a cheap cash grab. This is what it is. Like, it's what happened to this company? They get ravished severely by the Me Too movement of 2020, that they have left them down to the coals, that they're just trying to do all these quick cash grabs, which was justified, yeah. But was that damaging to them that now they have become like the most meme-worthy company of all of them? Like we kept mentioning, like Activision is still to me the worst one, and right now they're still like dealing with the mess of that lawsuit that's still ongoing. They try to file for denial because some lawyers apparently there was some ethics violation that they try to pull as there's ethics violation here, you can deny it. Like we asked for a denial of this because things didn't go right by the book, and they got denied that request. So they're still in it in that shit show, which is good.
When I heard about that, I was like, oh god, I really hope they don't get off the hook for this.
Yeah, just for a technicality, which is insane that it could have happened. And EA continues its 2021 wave of, oh, look at those idiots. Look how bad we were, just relatively unscathed here. That may come to an end in 17 days if their big shooter launch is busted. But who knows about that? Who knows about that? It's insane. And then kind of like in that same boat, like number 4, Yves Guillemot announced that Assassin's Creed Infinite will not be a free-to-play title, just to kind of quell everyone, because they made this proclamation back in May, if I remember. This was right before E3, that they were going to be pursuing more free-to-play titles than just premium experiences.
And so, Assassin's Creed Infinite being
a live service model.
So I'm seeing what they're trying to do with this, kind of marrying the two, if you'll bear with me for a second. I see it as Assassin's Creed Infinite is going to use blockchain technology as like the hub basic idea of it all. From there, they're going to add extra things, and you have to play through. See, this is where I'm gonna disconnect from what they're saying. Is they're saying play to earn. So you play through parts of the game to earn and own other parts of it. All that sounds like is progression, a progression system that already exists in a game. You earn the ability to play parts of a game by playing through it already. Why do you have to make people play and then earn another part of the game? That's not how that works. You should own a game and then earn parts of it yourself. What they want to do is sell you a little piece of it, and then you quote unquote earn more pieces, like a little multi-level marketing pyramid scheme. That worries me so much. No. Because if people try to do stuff like that, they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. And to me, like, they try that crap with Assassin's Creed, that series is over. Like, just them now eventually like embracing it being a full live service model instead of the very content packed open world that they've been releasing every 1 or 2 years, and that has been selling well, by the way. Valhalla was announced as the second highest selling game Ubisoft has ever made. Ever. So it's like they're doing all these moves while they're still showing, no, we're making lots of money.
Yeah.
But then why are you doing all this to seem even more greedy? That's the thing. It's like Assassin's Creed Infinite should be renamed Assassin's Greed. Like literal. Mm-hmm. Like that should I've heard that name before, but I'm recoining it. I haven't heard it in a while. But Assassin's Greed, you pursuing a live service model when it doesn't matter, is just you being greedy to a fault and destroying the core basis of your game just in the possibility of trying to earn a quick buck. And I have hope. I had a little bit of hope that maybe they were starting to realize the error of their ways. Look what happened with Frontline. Ghost Recon Frontline. Revealed, immediately delayed indefinitely after how scorching the reaction to that game was. Like insanity that then they were like, yeah, we're gonna take more time with this. I keep saying that maybe they had all these moves. Like, again, all of this doesn't just happen. These were all things that they had planned from like 2019, 2020, and now they're finally be like, we already were going this way, so we kind of have to announce that we're doing this, even though maybe they're slowly, like, you know how a slow freight ship takes like forever to turn around. In fact,
Yeah.
you should watch the I think it's the Destiny 2 was it Warman? Yeah, the Warman expansion review that SkillUp did. And he used an analogy of the freight train. You should look it up. And that's where I learned that the freight train, like, it takes a while before it starts like slowing down.
Oh yeah,
and then and then you like turn it around. So maybe they're in this in this mind, but the whole NFT and blockchain thing, that's like, that will seriously, if Activision gets out of this litigation, Ubisoft becomes the worst company of all of them. That's all I'll say. If they keep pursuing that,
Definitely.
When you have Steam, the biggest store in PC, saying we're not accepting that, and you have this company saying that, you know who's in the wrong. So, number 5, moving away from the Ubisoft segment, a Red Dead Redemption Remaster is reportedly in the works. Reportedly originally by Rockstar Magazine, a French YouTube channel that has reported leaks on Rockstar-related information in the past. Their video states that this will be a visual remaster rather than a full remake, similar in the vein to the soon-to-be-released GTA Trilogy Remaster, which comes out in 9 days from today.
Yeah.
I would pop so hard for a Red Dead Redemption Remaster. Red Dead Redemption is my... let me look at my list because I wrote this out. Give me a second.
While you look for that, I will say, you and I spoke on this before yesterday.
It's my 7th favorite game of all time. Red Dead Redemption. Yeah, my
okay.
7th. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This was definitely for me top 2 between this and Kingdom Hearts 2. I would replay each of those like at least once a year. Mm-hmm. Red Dead Redemption was just like something I'd never expected. This amazing idea of like, you can go bounty hunting, you can go ranching, you can hunt down people, you can just like be this horrible individual with a bounty on your head, or you can be a really good person. It was just like the ability to jump around between that stuff, the outfits you could change, you could play poker, you could do all these crazy things, was amazing. And I was hesitant because I had gone back to it playing backwards compatible on Xbox One, and I didn't think it held up as well with modern kind of hardware. Which is
insane. I thought it did, but
I think it did. I wasn't in the best place, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Also, I was playing on an older TV.
Yeah.
What really gets me interesting is if they really put in the effort similar to the GTA Trilogy remaster and like replace the textures, they've got me, because that will fully bring it in to, like, you just keep all of the same stuff. It's the same concept as modding to us, where we have these old games, you replace just the textures and let it run smooth. Those are like the 2 things you need to do to future proof just about anything, I think.
So
what you got?
If you had an Xbox One X, the one before the Series X,
yeah,
there were a couple 360 games that the Xbox One X was given the permission to basically quote-unquote remaster automatically, beef up everything to 4K.
Really?
Red Dead Redemption 1 was one of those games. If you had, like, let's say, if you had the chance to have like an Xbox One X or maybe a Series X in the future, and you put in the core version of Red Dead right now in the TV that you had, your mind will pop.
That would be really cool one day. I mean, honestly, the price of an Xbox One X at this point is probably like about the amount I'd get if I traded this piece of crap in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really lose too much by switching it out either. So that would be interesting to try that out one day, because I just think this base Xbox really isn't doing it for me. But then also I was using a like 42-inch messed up with like warping screen and stuff at the time, and I was just like, I'm spending all this time, like, I have fun when I shoot stuff, and then I have to spend 10 minutes picking everything up, and I was just like, I was in the middle of trying to play other things anyway. So.
And to me, the thing is that, especially after having gone through Red Dead 2, like, Red Dead 1 to me is just such a much better game, and like in every shape imaginable, with the exception of visuals and story.
Yeah.
And I have replayed, like, Rockstar games I rarely replay. In fact, like I told my famous story that GTA 4 was a game that, because of my trophy obsession back in the day, I burnt out trying to replay that game for trophies, having not had finished it yet. But Red Dead, I beat it on PS3. I beat it a couple of times on when I had a 360. I beat it when it came to Xbox backwards compatibility like 3 times. It's like the only Rockstar game that for some reason really speaks to me. Yeah. And I think it has to do with Rockstar games are usually very cynical. They're very, especially when it comes to GTA, like very heightened humor, very cynical humor. Red Dead's was always more sincere. There's a sincerity to that. The first game had it. The second game also had it. There's a certain sincerity to the writing they do in those games, and the world being a cow. Like rarely we get cowboy games, so just the rarity of being in the Old West always carried me. But Red Dead 1 to me hit the perfect middle of like realism while still being a fun game to control. 2 really went down the deep end of trying to be too realistic for its own good. There's so many video analysis of how that game is a schism of being one of the most impressive design games to look at and one of the most impressive stories to see told in games and one of the worst games to play.
Yeah.
Like it has kept me from wanting to go back to it. Having a Red Dead Redemption Remaster that at least doesn't embrace the Red Dead 2 of it all. Even though here's what's funny. The entirety of Red Dead 1 is in Red Dead 2. You can explore the entire map of Red Dead, like in that complete detail. And I think you can even go through all those areas with the exception of Mexico in Red Dead Online. You can, pardon me, like I don't play Red Dead Online. They built all of that for Red Dead 2 and it's just complete empty space. It was so funny because when you, spoiler alerts, when you finally play as John Marston on Red Dead 2, because it's a prequel to 1, you can go free reign and it's so interesting going through all that map. It's like, I remember this. Here's the place where you find Javier Escuela hiding with Bill Williamson. And it's like, man, they did all of this. Does this mean they're gonna do like single player DLC? Is gonna take I was gonna say that that is gonna take advantage of all this terrain they built, but no, they did Red Dead Online that they completely left almost abandoned. They released new content this year, like Blood and something.
I had Blood Money, I think. Yeah. But could you imagine if they even just took all of the models that they already have, they took all of the voice lines from the first game, and then just like somehow figured out a way to marry the code of the animations to the textures they already have, and then they just let you have the entire first game in the engine of the second one? Because it's supposed to be the same engine, I think.
A much more advanced engine with the second one.
But at least like the bare bones are kind of there. So like just imagine if you could somehow manage to put the first game into everything of the second, and like you finish it all and they're like, all right,
that's what I thought was gonna happen.
You see a little mission thing pop up and then it plays out the cutscene of the first game and you're John Marston, and then you begin the whole story of the first game. But then you get to go back to previous things that you had, and that would just, God, that would be so cool.
Yeah. My only apprehension is that as good as the 2 looks, I just don't like the movement of that game. I don't like how it feels. The walking animation. It's like it's too deliberate of a game. Like I wouldn't want a Red Dead 1 where you have to go through the up their own ass animation of I'm entering here, walking very slowly. I'm opening this. I'm grabbing one can. I'm opening. So it's like that just felt like showing off. Look how detailed we are, despite the fact that in real life you're not gonna be like opening this. So you see what I mean? It's like it gets so up their own ass with their detail that they put in that game that Red Dead 1 was a little bit more quicker, even though it still had a certain weight to the movement. It's not the smoothest movement.
Find funny, they actually patched out the animations for Red Dead Online when you're picking stuff up, because it used to be you had to flip the body over, open the jacket, look in, and then you pick it all up and redo it all. They took that out So now you
Good.
just like do a squat and pick it up.
Like one. That's how it was in Red Dead 1.
Exactly. It's really funny that they actually realized, oh crap, people are taking literally like 3 or 4 minutes picking up stuff out of these bodies, and it's like, yeah, it's cool the first couple times, and then you're just like, this is taking me forever. I don't want to do this anymore.
If you're OCD like I am, with like picking stuff up and exploring and all that, Red Dead 2 was a nightmare. And if this remaster happens, I would hope they take that out. Like, they don't spend too much time trying to add that much animation. That is the reason why Red Dead 2 took like 8 years almost total to make, despite it being in development in like for like 5, because GTA 5 was also made by the same team. Red Dead 1 was made by Rockstar San Diego. It was a different team, but that team almost imploded trying to make that game. Also, that's I'm excited for a remaster if it retains the feel of the original, because the feel of that is still one of my favorite Rockstar games. If it's like Red Dead 2, no thanks. Personally, like if that's the feel they go through, even though I would love for it to look like Red Dead 2. That game is so impressive looking. Even if you play it on PS5 right now, it doesn't. I wish they did a patch that would improve the frame rate, or would give it like a full 4K, because it's not full 4K on PlayStation. On Xbox it is. So that's the one game where, you know, when the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro came out, there was always a conversation of like, yeah, the Xbox One X is technically slightly better, but you wouldn't notice. But Red Dead 2 is the only game where it was like, if you look both versions side by side, if you had the PlayStation Pro version, you would feel gypped. That's how much detail the Xbox version had. So we'll see. So now those were the news from that just broke on Monday. But we wanted to talk about a few stuff from the previous week that I think are worthy of note. So this one's kind of a two-parter. Number 6, basically. The Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack came out last week, and it was nothing short of a disaster. Which, by the way, if you looked at our full episode last week, or just the topic one, after we had wrapped up, me and PJ recorded like a post-credit scene for like 12 minutes where we just roasted this thing. It was very cathartic, because, especially coming from him, he didn't hold back at all how bad and stupid the execution of the expansion pack has been, especially for the price. Lag, you can't even save in some games, because it's wanting you to have like that old memory card that you put behind the N64 controller. They don't even sell those, and some games are programmed that way. Just shows they put the smallest amount of quality. And do you see the Nightmare controller, how they mapped? Like, if you didn't have the N64 controller, that costs $50, by the way, if you want to have like the pure experience, just them mapping 2 of the yellow buttons, and then the rest is like, yeah, if you want the left yellow button, hold R and press, like
Jesus. It's terrible. It's like the same problem that I had with Skyward Sword, where you had to hold the Z button and then be able to move things around. That's just not practical for modern gaming, and they don't understand that, because they don't play games. They make games. We make games. We don't play games. And they'll say that as like it's a good thing, and like, cool, good for them. But at the same time, if you're not going to benefit from the actual abilities and changes of the industry, then you're going to recreate all of the same mistakes. They're playing with technology from like 2000.
Earlier. N64 was 96.
Yeah, you're right. 96. So 25 plus years at this point. And this is ridiculous that they still think they can do that.
Yeah, and especially just launching with 9 games. So
we've talked about the price for that.
We already went through that. However, there was this Twitter data miner, Mondo Mega, that unveiled the possibility of 38 Nintendo 64 games and 52 Sega Genesis games that are possibly heading to the service. It lists the already announced Majora's Mask, but also several like Wave Race, the trilogy of Mario Party games released for N64, and the original Super Mario Bros. Plus an empty list that you can that's like in alphabetical order. That if you think of what are the popular N64 games, you can kind of fill that up.
Yeah.
As of right now, with 9 games, with the current execution, all that, at 50, if you're paying the 50 for that right now, like PJ said, you're an idiot. He said it like you're just wasting you're just wasting money. When there's 38 games, if it happens, maybe.
No.
And that's the thing. Like,
not even. I looked at the list, including all these things. This isn't worth any of that. Mario
they need
Party
a cheaper
game,
party. Yeah,
they literally created the Mario Party Superstars thing that made
available
all the
now,
good stuff
and
for
it's
Mario
been good.
Party.
And it's been good apparently.
I bought it yesterday, actually. I haven't played it yet, but my wife really wanted it, so that was what I was buying. Wave Race, I'm gonna say as
Never
gamer
played it.
that didn't go through. I don't know what that is. I don't care.
Yes.
Yeah, there's cool stuff on Nintendo 64, but
Very limited.
put the cool stuff on Nintendo 64 on there. Like,
Yeah.
not any of this stuff that I don't care about. Maybe
So-
I'm just wrong.
No, so
but-
here's my thing. Like, for example, right now Super Mario 64 is there. To me, that's completely worthless because I have the 3D All Stars collection.
Exactly.
I bought it when I needed to buy it. So for everyone
With, I
that
think,
missed
better
out,
controls?
similar. Yeah, I would say the similar controls. It's still, that doesn't make it worth. Like Ocarina of Time, had I not played it recently on my Wii that I plugged in, just like and beat it,
Yeah.
that would have tempted me. Yoshi's Island is a personal favorite of mine of the N64. That's there right now, but I'm not paying that. And also Star Fox 64 is another game that's so near and dear. And I have so many good memories of the 3 Mario parties and Mario Kart 64. Mario Kart 64 was my first Mario Kart. I never played the Super Nintendo one. My thing is that
Yeah.
Mario Kart 64 contingent of me having friends to have fun with it. And at this point, it's like, would I rather play that or Mario Kart 8?
Yeah, and same thing with the original Super Smash Bros. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
want to go back and play
And
that. by
yeah, just for
myself.
the nostalgia kicks, and that's the thing. This may be a hot take for some people. I don't care. I don't think the first Smash Bros was a good game on 64. The idea was cool, but that series really came on its own with Melee on GameCube. That's
It was good for what it was because nothing had ever been done like that before. But I agree, Melee just did everything better
exactly so.
than the original.
That doesn't appeal to me. Supposedly the BanjoKazooie games are coming. Here's my thing: you can play those right now on Xbox One. Yeah, so it's like, and another thing, you can knock that out the list. There's rumors that GoldenEye 007 may be coming to the service because Germany took it out of like the forbidden games to play in that country in a way. That usually a ban of that nature takes like 25 years, but they took it out a year earlier. So that means someone that really wanted the license wanted to take that out. So because otherwise they would have waited 25 years for the ban to run out. But if you're like 24 years, like a year before taking it out, then that means maybe they want to do something. That's a very, that and Perfect Dark are the seminal shooters of that era. GoldenEye is the more beloved one. Perfect Dark is technically the better one because it came after and they learned all this stuff.
I actually played more of the Perfect Dark game than GoldenEye back when I was younger because that was what like my friend had. They had Perfect Dark.
It was the later one. And again, you can play that on Xbox One
Xbox.
with the reminder. So again, all of this is like, I don't see the value personally.
Exactly.
The only way I see the value of this is that they put Majora's Mask. That's the only Zelda in this year that I've replayed all of them that I haven't played. And I've only played it on 3DS. I've never played the N64 version. And then they're doing this thing that they're subsidizing the cost away. Like, so from like with how long you have before you have to like renew for a year. I'm waiting for that to get as low as humanly possible. And if they add Majora's Mask, that's when I'm gonna bite, play that game, and cancel. So like right now, if I would be to sign up, it would cost me like $35 because I have to renew in June. I'm gonna wait later because they haven't added. And what's there right now is not worth it for me.
I mean, at that point, you'd be better off just getting an emulator for it.
Yeah, I mean, I tried
putting it on the emulator you already have. That is.
No, that's just for, well, OpenEMU works with that, but with the N64 with the computer that I have, doesn't run it well. I tried running Donkey Kong 64. Another game I would pop if they put there. Donkey Kong. I have a big memory of Donkey Kong 64 from back in the day. That was my last N64 game. Then other game like Conker's Bad Fur Day you can play on Xbox. That's what's funny is like a lot of the N64 library was boosted by Rare. Microsoft owns Rare. So it's like
Right.
it's insane to think that. So, but hey, 38 games are coming. I will say there's some people for some people the idea of having 38 Nintendo 64 games and guaranteed are the bangers because the bangers are an NES and SNES classic.
True.
Maybe then. I just
To those people.
to those people exactly. I don't see anything here that's value to you. The only value for me is Majora's Mask and Yoshi's Island. I have to wait for that list to grow higher, but Nintendo has to fill up more. Just right now it's asinine. There's only 9 games and they're working as bad as they are right now.
Yeah.
Oh god. Final story. This one was very exciting. Skydance Media previously announced that Amy Hennig, the original creator of Uncharted, is working alongside them to work on a new game. It wasn't like a new IP or anything.
Okay.
A couple days ago, though, this project was confirmed to be a Marvel game. We do not know the details about what character or group the game will follow, but it is being marketed as a narrative-driven blockbuster action-adventure game and a completely original story and take on the Marvel Universe. So at this point, just about anything is possible. It's insane how many Marvel games are getting announced and I've been wanting this for a while. It was crazy that we had so many movies and barely any Marvel game.
Even the idea of licensed games, which have been kind of on the way out, we briefly had that attempt with the Thor game, the Captain America game, the Iron Man 1 and 2 games, the Incredible Hulk game.
The best one of the
then
bunch.
They dropped the idea completely after that.
Sega did those. And Sega did those.
Hmm.
Go figure.
Yeah, but I will say, it seems that they finally figured out that there is a very big possible mining place out of this. There is gold in those hills.
If you do it right.
If you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
True. But I mean, they've seen now since Marvel Spider-Man jumped out there and just freaking crushed the competition. Then they announced the Wolverine game. Guardians of the Galaxy came out and apparently has been pretty good, as you were saying.
I'll talk about it later.
And I'm sure there's a couple. Oh, Marvel's Avengers kind of came and went, and then they did some cool stuff with it.
Yeah. Marvel Avengers came and it's still here. In fact, the news today announced that they're sorry for putting pay-to-win boosters.
They actually said that.
Yeah, today.
Oh my god.
Oh man. And how Wakanda? Wakanda was good.
They learned their lesson, and
Yes.
they gave that for free.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate when companies are clearly mature enough to say, listen, we screwed up. Here's a thing for free. Here's more support for free. Here's stuff that we want to give you to change our perspective in the media. So especially with Guardians of the Galaxy now being a hit, I'm hoping that they're going to continue. It's going to turn the eye of the mouse towards the video game industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get more of that, and maybe we can get more in Star Wars as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's still crazy to me that it's so fascinating seeing the Mouse House get it so wrong with Star Wars and getting it so right with Marvel, like in the game side. Like
There
they're
was
big
the monkey's paw situation. You had to sacrifice, what was it, a soul for a soul?
A soul for a soul, and they had to But what's funny, their handling of the Star Wars also mirrors what happened in the movies. Let's just say that. Which, by the way, like, I got a memory that the Rise of Skywalker final trailer was like around this time 2 years ago, and like the final trailer that happened like in one baseball game. I don't remember where it was.
Yeah.
And just remembering that, it's like, oh man, innocent times.
I was excited for Rise of Skywalker because they were clearly like, we're gonna fix everything that got messed up. Like, we're gonna
by trying to fix it, they made it worse.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny. Like, everything Marvel they've handled so relatively well, with the possible exception of the movie that comes out later this Friday, based on reviews.
The Eternals.
Yes. Which, by the way, let me see where the count is. I've been like tracking it. It's been funny because
it's at like somewhere in the 60s now, isn't it?
It is loading. It is loading. My internet is being stupid. Come on, load.
I think
load.
this is good.
Oh, it happened. It finally happened.
What?
Marvel's
it's certified rotten.
Yeah, Marvel's Eternals is certified rotten at 57% with 152 reviews in. So,
if I'm being entirely honest, I would be tempted to make reviews that are bad just to make sure that it showed that. I want to like it because it seemed kind of cool, and like a neat little new direction to take the series. But
it seemed like a swing, and they missed from what these reviews about.
They put an effort into it, so I was like, hey, shout out to you, because you can't make all bangers, even though everyone thinks you can. I think that it needs, especially companies in this position with Marvel, Disney, all that stuff, they need to have a few misses in their own IPs because they need to stay humble.
Oh, yes. And the last time they had a quote-unquote miss was Thor, The Dark World back in 2013. So that's 8 years of almost everything being positive in the movie side. The TV side had some rough stuff, but they disowned that, so doesn't count. But back to gaming, it's like, it's crazy that they really got it right with the Marvel side of like having the right idea of like, we're not making this in-house. We're not just giving this license to one publisher. The license is free for everyone to come pitch in. Because that's the thing. You were worried, we chatted about this in our chat about you're worried about monopoly and all of that. They're not going to developers. Developers are coming to them because there's developers that know that right now with how hot the Marvel property is, if they work on that and they put the TLC necessary to make a really good game, that's where the money is right now. And it's kind of the thing that I would agree is worrying is the fact that general public only sees value in Marvel stuff. And that could stifle creativity. At the same time, there's barely been many Marvel games if you really think about that. 2018, that was Marvel Spider-Man. 2 years later, we got 2019. We got Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, the Black Alliance, the Black Order on Switch. Then 2020, we got Miles Morales, and also Marvel's Avengers, and nothing really this year. I take that back. Guardians of the Galaxy this year. Now next year they're getting Midnight Suns.
Right.
So, and what do all these have in common? They're all different kinds of games.
True.
And by spreading it like that, compared to Star Wars with EA, like when you just
put 2 shooters and
a Metroidvania, and a quickly made ship game. So that's where I'm like finally noticing that they're fixing that by opening the Star Wars license now after the EA expiration contract,
and which of course the first one is going to be held by Ubisoft,
and they're gonna make it an NFT. Yay!
God,
oh, can you believe that year we were so excited?
Can't we have nice things? Damn it.
But and more importantly, I think we haven't had an Amy Hennig game since Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception, which turned 10 yesterday. It was just insane. That game is so special to me, like memory-wise, that I can't believe it's a decade old. So many special games: Batman Arkham City, Skyrim.
I looked it up.
Dark Souls.
What came out in 2009 to compare to all this stuff? And it was crazy.
You mean 2011?
Like the original. Okay, I was thinking of 2009 because of Uncharted 2. Not
exactly.
Sorry. But yeah, 2011. Wasn't that Skyrim, he said?
Yeah, 2011 was Skyrim. 2011 was Skyward Sword. 2011 was Uncharted 3. 2011 was Modern Warfare 3. 2011 was Batman Arkham City. 2011 was Resistance 3. 2011 was Gears of War 3. 2011 was Portal 2. 2011 was a minefield of gold.
Classic banger after bang, whatever was in the water that year, and like 2005 all the way to like 2011, maybe 2012, maybe 2013, and then it just like dropped off. But like during that time, that was a freaking renaissance. Oh my gosh, we were spoiled.
That's still my favorite generation, that 360 PS3 era. Just the variety that we used to have then.
Good.
Yeah, and Amy Hennig hadn't had a single game release in a decade since Uncharted 3. She was working on Uncharted 4. Something happened with that project that she was let go. Then she went to Visceral to work on that Star Wars game that got canned in 2017.
This poor girl can't catch a break.
Yeah, it's so sad because she's such a great writer. You're playing through the trilogy. Sorry.
A little slowly right now, but
yeah, but you're replaying the Amy Hennig games. Like the first 3 games, they're all her. Plus, Neil Druckmann helped her with Uncharted 2, like in game design, and Bruce Straley. So, 3 was.
I saw he said that he didn't help on 3.
No, he because that's when he was working on The Last of Us.
Right.
So 4 is the only one that she didn't. Ideas of her original game are still there. If you play 4, Scotland was something that they had made that they reused when Neil rewrote the story, and Madagascar was always the ultimate goal. So kernels of her game are there, but the game that they made was not hers.
Yeah.
The Star Wars game would have been. I just imagined the Star Wars game with her quality of writing and the swashbuckling.
The Project Ragtag, like you're talking about.
1313 is prior to EA.
Right.
Yeah, 1313 was actually made by LucasArts before LucasArts got canned. They were like, we're no longer making the games here, we're sending them out. And here's the worst part. You know that 1313 actually took its work to Visceral. And they were like, here's what we already have. This game's almost complete. Do you guys want to finish it? And then they were like, nah, we're going to do our own thing. And that also got canned.
Well, I will say, because I know it was supposed to be like a gritty M-rated game, and they were like, no, we want to shave all of the edges off of our projects right now. But like, how hard would it be to make something not M-rated like that? Unless you have like
take the blood out. Exactly.
Like that's a command code. You can easily switch something like that out.
I would agree with that, especially when blood also in movies is done like in After Effects and all that. Blood could, unless there's like dismemberment.
If something like Gears of War can make itself rated T by changing blood and cursing, and Assassin's Creed can do the same thing, I feel like anything can make itself.
Let me correct. Gears has never gone to T. Halo did.
It not legally, but in the options you can take.
Oh yes, you can make make it a T-rated game if you want by turning blood.
Yeah, you might as well make it. But yeah, so I think they could have. It's just the world of canceled Star Wars games could create an entire media universe on itself.
Absolutely.
Between 1313, the canceled Darth Maul action game
that was like Batman Arkham. Supposedly was supposed to be a Batman Arkham Asylum style game.
I look at gameplay of that and I get so mad. Battlefront 3 with documenting the entire Order 66 and like cutscenes, literally 99% finished. Ooh, it gets me burnt up thinking about it. The stuff that they just get rid of for no reason.
Now, just real quick, what do you like? Put it out there. What do you think Amy Hennig's working on within the Marvel universe? Like what?
I mean, if we can do something as crazy as Midnight Suns at this point, she could literally do anything. I mean, we're going I almost would. If I could pick something, if she could do like a grounded Captain America game in the style of like Uncharted almost, kind of picture it like a very different style of mechanics, but like you can kind of have shooting mechanics, but you can have your shield and maybe some martial arts process in that.
So
what you thinking?
There's this, I'm not putting it, I read this. Everyone's favorite leaker place, 4chan, had leaked that Marvel was also working on a Daredevil game.
That would be good.
So
I could see that.
Why this has credence? At the end of that leak, they also said they're also just pitched a Wolverine game. What was revealed this year?
The Wolverine game. Oh, I see what you mean. So because they said in the leak Wolverine and Daredevil.
And Daredevil, so now it's like
okay.
And the thing is that they've been Amy Hennig joined Skydance in 2019. It's been 2 years. So
do you think she helped? Okay, yeah.
So that means that this was already been in the works for a while, and if 4chan was able to find that, and they reported the Wolverine thing way before it was revealed in this last September. Maybe that's what she's working on. And here's what's funny: Janina Gavankar, who played the character you play in Battlefront 2, Aiden Verso.
Yeah, Verso.
She is also reportedly a part of this game.
Good for her.
And here's the thing: do you watch Daredevil on Netflix?
Yeah. I did up until part of season 3. I think I dropped.
Do you remember Elektra?
Yes.
The way her Elektra looked. Look at Janina Gavankar and tell me if she doesn't have an air of Elektra.
Oh, she can do it.
Maybe that's.
I really like her. I've seen her in all those interviews for Battlefront 2 and stuff. She seemed like she had so much passion for it.
She's a very she is a legit gamer. She's one of those actors that she's a legit gamer.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that I will always thank her for spoiling that Horizon 2 was happening 3 years before it was announced. So because she was in the DLC. And yeah, can't wait.
Oh, I never played the DLC. Oh my gosh.
You haven't finished the game. It's 60 frames. Finish it. I'm gonna bring back book club, and we're gonna.
Every time you bring it up, I push it back another 6 months.
The sequel's coming.
I will buy the sequel and then sit it there and take a picture of it every day, saying I'm waiting.
Oh god, but yeah, can't wait to hear more because I want another Amy Hennig game because she knows how to write. Like in the game media, and maybe she doesn't need to be a game director. Maybe that's what was falling apart for her, that she was both game director and writer in a way, and maybe it was reaching a point it was becoming a little too unwieldy. If you read the history of Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, Uncharted 4's development, it's reported that apparently Amy was kind of like let go because she wasn't making decisive decisions enough for the timeliness of that project. So who knows if the same things happened at Visceral that led to that studio being closed down. Who knows? But I want more from her. It's been too long. The Uncharted trilogy is so special in its writing. So, and with that, we have concluded the news section of this week's episode. And for everyone listening to the full thing, we are transitioning over to what have we been playing. No topic this week. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another section of what have we been playing. We are not doing a topic this week, because we had a lot that we had been playing, and because last week's was a very special segment that we focused just on one game, we needed to balance out. So how you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well. It's been a week, but
it really has been.
I got to experience some new loves in my life with some of these games, and I really want to talk about them this week. And I thought that we could finally escape Metroid talk.
Yeah, but
it seems like that's still going to creep in.
No, it's absolutely going to creep in. Also, by the way, when we were recording this, Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 were just delayed.
Yeah, so finale to our news segment, that's for sure.
Yeah, or an addendum.
I'm not surprised at this point, especially considering what developer has been working on those two games.
Yeah, and the co-leaders that were appointed when the president left, one of them just announced that she's stepping down. So the co-leader is just down to one leader. Definitely nothing's on fire in that place, but we're done with news for now. We have to just talk about what we have been playing.
We're going to talk about fun things now.
Yes, like especially this first one. Paul, what have you been playing? Because I sort of did, but you played more of this one. Talk to me about it.
I played a lot of this, Alejandro. I played Resident Evil 8 finally. The game that I was excited about when it was announced, when it came out, but I waited. I was a good boy. I was great. I held off, and sure enough, like you said, like I said, there was a Halloween themed sale for Resident Evil 8, and maybe it feels like to some people that it wasn't a big thing to wait for $25 off, but to me, that was a big deal. 33%, and the fact that I was actually able to hold off on this, but the fact that I finally put this sucker in and I played it. I have beat the game now 2.5 times. I played through it once with my wife, so it is the first game we've started and finished together, with me of course being in the driver's seat and she playing backseat gamer, because she does not handle movement well at all. She doesn't handle
especially in that.
no, she doesn't handle the right stick ability at all well. So in games that require it, it's definitely better. And I realized that it's not just a fact of her not playing a lot of games, but even in Pokemon, she says if she's moving too fast on the bike, it'll make her nauseous sometimes. So that's like just a her personally thing. So she has to watch herself. But anyway, I was more than happy to oblige by playing something and watching her react to it.
Especially that kind of game.
Yes, I wasn't expecting her to be into it, but when I remember when the demo got dropped, I mentioned it to her briefly, and she said, "Oh, you need to re-download that right now because I want to see it." And so we walked through the whole castle, and she just like fell in love with the concept. She laughed at all the memes that everyone talked about, Lady Dimitrescu, and
about being stepped on.
The big mommy memes and all that stuff. And so yeah, it was really entertaining, and so she watched through all of that, and fortunately, since it was such a action-oriented game, she was like, all right, this is really cool, gorgeous. I had to bring the sensitivity to like 2.
Dang, so you had to like turn real slow.
Oh, I had to turn real slow for her because she could only handle like so much of it. Even then, she would like look away while I was moving around faster and watch more intently during like big cutscene moments, big gameplay moments, boss fights, but she was always there like kind of digesting it. And basically she had to sit like halfway across the entire room to watch it as well. So it was a process, but this isn't her talking about it, this is me talking about it. So
you like Resident Evil 8.
I like Resident Evil 8. This was a great way for them to build on everything that happened in the 7th game, from the first-person shooter action side of it. The Ethan Winters character and his ability to do things has been in-universe explained as getting training from Chris Redfield so that he can reload faster, move faster, do things a lot quicker and more FPS hero style. I love the passion that comes across with him being solely motivated by getting his daughter back. It's not really spoiler since it happens in the first 10 minutes, but the twists and turns in the plot were really interesting. I mean, some of it's like dorky action hero style things, and a lot of people likened it to like Ash versus the Evil Dead, and I think there's still a place for that because I loved all of the campiness and the silliness of like, my goodness, this dude is just getting like shredded by stuff and he just kind of shrugs it off, and which is a plot point
very early happens.
That they continue like just messing this guy up so bad, but it actually becomes a plot point later on that I will not spoil or talk about. However, the things that they did in this plot had me so excited for what Resident Evil is going to do in this new continuity, more than I've been excited for Resident Evil in a while.
So, I played. Just to kind of jump in. I also got the game. I haven't finished it. Hey, kitten, you're looking quite angry.
He's got an RBF, but he's actually very happy. He got impatient, so he's sitting in my lap right now.
Yeah. Unlike you, I've only played like an hour of this game because I did the stupid thing of playing this on Halloween night. And it was way too spooky to keep on going. So, just real quick, like, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but does the game walk back or fully embraces the fact that this is just going beyond a bio-degenerating disease into full supernatural? Because
it is very much going towards that, it feels, because I kind of told you, like, in that one sentence of it, so the whole thing is that I'm realizing that they are saying they can kind of do whatever they want with the virus, Everything from like, I mean, you remember how they said in Resident Evil 4, I think they explained how the creatures get so huge
Mm-hmm.
is by like the cells regenerating so fast of mitosis or whatever. So like they can kind of throw whatever sciencey babble in there to make the creature do whatever they want. And through that, you get these crazy things like I can't remember what it is, but the entire setup is the four people, as you know, they're like the four lords of the village. Each of them have been adopted into this situation, more or less. But I'm trying to make sure I don't say too much about it, but more or less, their powers are based on something singular that happened to them. And that's why they're in their position, and that's kind of why all of the creatures are the way they are. And from there we understand what the big bad person is, because I don't know if they mentioned the big bad yet. I think they have, because where are you at though?
I found a few survivors in the village after the initial being cornered and seeing this dude with a hammer.
Yeah.
So,
and did you find like was just those two people, the old man and the daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, so they will very soon, within literally like the next 2 minutes, are going to tell you the name of the person that has caused all this.
I want to keep playing it, but I can't play that game at night. It was so scary that I didn't remember 7 being this scary, or maybe it was, and I played it in different circumstances, but really first person Resident Evil really hits different.
Yes.
Especially with such a limited field of view and constantly being like stepped on by those stupid lichens that I remember I said, F this, I'm out. I texted that. I was like, I'm not vibing with the lichens, but you told me that they move away from that. So I'm like, okay, good thing. I'm not liking them as enemies personally.
So there's a reason why that group is lichens, or similar to like a werewolf. And every point after that, they only show up in the village, I believe. Right. There's different enemies in the different regions, so that's one thing to mention. The other one was a tip is, they don't tell you this, but if you hit back and circle, you can do that 180
like all the other games.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't tell you that you could do that, and I spent an entire game not realizing it, so I'm like turning around to run.
Especially if you're in 2 sensitivity.
Yes. I very quickly had to try to figure out ways to do it, but I also played it on casual, so by the end...
I am also playing it on casual. I'm not touching that thing in normal. Maybe until New Game Plus, if you can carry the...
I played through it on normal, my first playthrough, and what I ended up doing was I played through it, and then I played back through the game on New Game Plus on casual to the exact point that I left off so I could play with my wife. But I had one gun that had infinite ammo just in case, to like make sure the forward momentum was always happening. And but that was my backup.
Does the infinite ammo thing happen the same as in like RE5 if you fully upgrade a weapon?
Yes. So it is... you have to fully upgrade the weapon in the main story, so that means you have to use the story currency. And then after you've beaten the game, it unlocks the idea of challenges, which I think that was already a thing. And you like shoot 5 crows that are flying away or something, and it's like gives you points or whatever.
It really feels like a mix of 4 and 7. It absolutely feels like they have merged those 2 games in this one. But
like that's the best thing about it, I think, because 4 obviously is really strong, and then 7 added a lot of really good stuff, but that was clearly their experimental phase. And 8 is them dialing that in just crisp. I still don't fully like that the weapons are still like kind of third person-y. You know what I mean? Like it's like you never really look. It's like the Battlefront style where it stays off to the side. But like I got used to it after a while. And the guns feel way better this time around. I think they have a lot more variation of them.
Are you playing with the adaptive triggers?
Yes.
Man, like trying to aim a shotgun, like it does the thing of like holding L2 so strong and to aim, and then like it adds a certain level of desperation that I appreciate, because I've always mentioned that adaptive triggers on the PS5 have been hit and miss. Some games do it really well, other games completely botch it, and I feel this is like in the adding to the experience of the desperation, because it's not just a quick pull trigger. Obviously you can turn those off in the options, but I kind of want to leave them on, kind of like I did with Deathloop. So
I think this is one of the few that really does well, because you feel the power of every gun, especially the shotgun is perfect. I struggled with the sniper rifle, but that's
there's a sniper rifle. Okay, that wasn't in 7.
They give you a lot of different weapons. Just for this one, there's like 3 different shotguns, 2 different pistols in the regular game, and a few other things. And then New Game Plus gives you like 3 new pistols after that, 2 different rifles, like another shotgun variant, like all these different things you can buy to unlock and play through the game 100% with these guns that literally weren't in the game for the first time around. So it's like, even if it's the same stuff, you're playing it with new weapons that you can unlock, plus the infinite ammo on top of that. So you can buy the gun, it shows up in your store, you can play it normally with regular ammo, and then if you get the extra investment, you can put in for infinite.
Now, how long is it? Now you play beating it twice,
I beat
or you're
it in under 9 hours.
Perfect. That sounds beautiful.
But this, every time after that, especially when I understood where to go and what to do and how to do it, I shaved that off to like 4 hours. I actually got a challenge for healing less than 4 times throughout the whole course of the game. And it's funny because the irony is not lost on me that I bounced off so hard of Metroid, and now I am basically doing the exact same thing that PJ is doing on a different game. Because I'm like, oh, I can shave my time down by doing this. Like, oh, look at this weapon that I unlocked. Look at this cool option.
Do you understand why like thinking just about game length is so stupid?
Yeah.
Look, there's replay value. Though. When there's like inherent replay value in short games, trying to do it that way.
Yes.
That you can. It's better having a repeatable game, I think, than one that's just one big chunk that then you don't touch again because it's so long.
Yeah. I agree with that. There's a small caveat that I would add, because something like Metroid Dread, where when you play through the whole game, you kind of experience it all, and the only thing you gain afterwards is, like you said, that ability to cut down the time. Where Resident Evil adds, like, you can do the time, but you can also do mercenaries, you can also do all of the weaponry, you can also do all of the other optional things that you didn't know about playing through, finding new things. And I think that Capcom specifically, like I had said to you, is the absolute unequivocal king of New Game Plus modes in their modern game. I mean, not just modern, I'd say anything.
They've been bringing it since forever.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the Devil May Cry series. The game doesn't even really begin until you've beaten it once, where you get all of your other difficulty modes. All of your abilities carry over into all subsequent moves and playthroughs, and you can keep unlocking things. And it's
what I keep saying, that's the replay value.
Yeah.
It's not just about the finishing the game, but how many ways can you like interact with that game within its limited time. It's decent limited time, and I feel Capcom knows how to do a perfect amount of length, I would say. And even a game like Resident Evil 4, I would say, is one of the ones that doesn't hold up in the length in a way, because that's one's a little too long for what you want. So hearing you beat it in 9 hours is like, that's good. That's good, because then if I like it, like I did like other games like 5, that its replay value was so intrinsic to me, like going through it, like I got down to be able to beat Resident Evil 5 in 2 hours with a fully upgraded Wesker Desert Eagle. It was so good, because like shoot with the infinite ammo. So.
And it feels so good, especially when on that later playthroughs, you don't even have to worry about wasting time on items,
Mm-hmm.
and you just go through your like movie style John Wicking everything, and it turns into a different game because you no longer play it like a survival horror. You play it like the action super hot style game that you know it is.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing. Like the that first run through is like can be special on its own as you're learning it, like creeping around, and then you basically break it in your subsequent playthrough. So,
Which is, I forgot to mention this, and then we can move on.
mhm.
That game still has one of the best scary segments and scariest segments that I hated in all of.
I have
playing.
heard there's one specific section that is like
And it is
absolutely horrifying.
you play through. You're gonna go through like the castle segment, and after that is a part where I was shaking on the end portion of it, and I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't heard.
I have heard that the one thing this game does different is like 7 had all this sense of dread that never let off. This one's more of like a roller coaster,
yes.
in a way, that because it's not as it doesn't hit you with that sense of dread all the time. When it finally hits you back, it's even more terrifying because you have your peaks and valleys. So that makes me excited because being in the village is very dreadful. Like, especially when you have 10 lichens following you.
The funniest thing is how they take that, and eventually, like, the village is going to almost become a safe haven for you. And you're going to be like, oh, thank God I'm back in the village.
Oh, dang.
Compared to what is going on elsewhere in the game. But like you said, it's really so good, actually, now that I think about it, with these valleys and mountains, because in like Resident Evil 2 remake, they'll put other enemies back in the path of you, and like bring back enemies you already killed and stuff, because you're like,
and then
oh,
they
God.
put the freaking Mr. X kind of factor, which this game has, right? Like it basically has its own version of Mr. X.
In certain areas, there's like a certain enemy that's kind of haunting you in 2 spots.
And I'll say this, is that getting a little overused? Because 7 had it, obviously 2 had it, 3 had it, and now this one had it. It's like all of these games are adding it.
I will say it's a lot less pronounced, and to the point that I kind of forgot about it at times. And it's so easily able to be worked around that it's almost not really a threat. So if I could say one sort of negative thing, is that you can kind of solve a lot of the problems even without weaponry by understanding the map. Because I don't want to go too far into it, but just the idea that, you know, Mr. X is like you had to remap the entire thing in your head to go around him.
That's what made it satisfying, though, because you could plan ahead.
Yes,
with how well designed the police
sort of has that, but it's almost a little tricky because you do the same thing for certain other enemies in general. So you almost like, once you understand how to cheese the AI, it's not really a threat.
Does it have a moment where you think you're in a safe place, but it turns out it is not? Because I had that moment with RE2, where you're in the center of the police station and you can save there, but Mr. X can go through there. I remember I was like, oh, at least this is a big place. And then I see him walk in, and I almost I literally soiled myself because I had to run to the bathroom when that happened. I was like, crap.
Not in the extent that you would say, like, there's even with the character hunting you, you're still able to have a safe place. There is one area that I can think of that they specifically flip that on its head, and that you're definitely not safe, but it's almost like an afterthought in that moment because you're so focused on, oh my gosh, I have paused this thing to now be in my area. I need to get out of here. And I don't even think about the fact that where I'm running through was a safe place that the enemy's absolutely able to get me to now. So yes and no in a way, but I think they understand that people were going to cheese that in one way and then also be a little too nervous about it in the other. So they dialed it in, and I think they definitely dialed it back on the concept of the hunting character throughout.
Can't wait to play more. The thing is that my mind is so intrinsically tied to other things that I'm going to talk later, but tell me about all these other games you've been playing. before I go to
Most
mine.
of the others I'll just jump through. I played more of Hell Let Loose with friends of mine, which is a terrifying experience but amazing because it has immense highs as you're working together to take something over, and then immense lows where you're walking across a field and you get sniped by somebody that there's absolutely no way you were going to be able to fight back against, and you really need to take that one in bursts. Insurgency Sandstorm, I played a little bit more of that with some friends. It's a little bit buggy, a little bit glitchy, but the nostalgia and feeling of that close Rainbow Six old school feel is fantastic, and I can't let it go. Marvel Spider-Man, I went back to that very briefly, played a little bit of it, still holds up, still feels great. It's just one of those comfort foods that every once in a while I want to play. And then Jedi Fallen Order, played a little bit more of that. I really didn't. I still hate that they don't let me skip cutscenes, but it's just like kind
that
of
and
fun
Ghost of
to
Tsushima.
work through. I know. Wait, I thought you could skip.
No, in Ghost of Tsushima you can't.
I swear I thought we could at some point, but okay, maybe not. Okay. So yeah, and then Metroid Zero Mission, played a little bit more of that, beat Kraid, beat about half of it, and then I stopped, and I really need to go back to it. And the last thing I wanted to mention is Carrion, which I got for $15, and you are playing basically as if
a
you
monster
play
in a Metroidvania, right? That's basically how it's been pitched to me.
Yeah. The problem is I didn't know it was a Metroidvania until I started playing it, and the amount of despair I felt when I was like just wrecking through, and then I found my way like through all of the tunnels, and then I went to an area that I was already in, and I went, oh no, I've been to here before. I gotta figure out my way through this thing without a map. I got lost, and I had to quit because I couldn't figure out where to go. I was so mad.
Directionally challenging.
I thought it was gonna be like a linear storyline of like you're getting your power-ups, you're wiping out dudes, which was really fun, and you're like aliening them with like hiding in the vents and sniping people and sucking them up and ripping them in half.
But that's the thing, you've been playing Castlevania Advanced Collection, obviously you played Dread, you played Zero Mission, which we mentioned last week.
So many Metroid
exactly. So your mind should be like, the language of that genre should be like so intrinsically tied.
I think I'm tired of it. That's
that
my
could
problem.
Be fair. Yeah, that could be fair.
Because I've played through 5 or 6 Metroidvanias in a row now with like releases and older releases and stuff. Well, the problem is with Carrion, there's literally not a map.
Oh, okay,
I had to look it up online to see where this map is and where I'm supposed to go. Like,
can't do that. Yeah, and Metroidvania without a map is a no. It's a big no for me. It's
terrible. It's less of Metroidvania, and like there's this area, and then there's this area, then there's that area, but it's like there's only really one way to get up and down through those. But the problem is like when they don't really tell you where to go, the problem is they have a echolocation feature where you hit a button and you growl, and then the things that you're supposed to go to kind of make like a sound wave effect back at you. The problem is they're all the same color, and there's no indication of kind of where it actually is.
Makes sense.
And it's like I'll see bases that I've already taken over will still react to that, and so I don't know if it's something that I've already done or something I need to do. So it's very obtuse in that direction side of it. But when it really works is when you have like what was it, that samurai game that was on the Switch that you could rewind time for?
Mark of the Ninja?
Not quite. There was another one that I'm gonna think about it later. But anyway, the idea is that you've got this group, like My Name is Pedro kind of style of, all right, you've got these enemies, figure out how to take them all out, and then you move on to the next room where there's enemies and you got to figure out how to take them out. That's where I love it. The whole like, all right, now you got to get through these areas and take over things that are on the macro level that I'm like not really vibing with. So that was all that
you've been playing. So what have I been playing? Like I mentioned, I also played a little bit of Resident Evil 8, but I haven't played as much. I also started playing Guardians of the Galaxy, a game that I was waiting for reviews on, and obviously we talked about that in our news show from last week, that it was reviewing really well, especially compared to Square's previous Marvel game, Marvel's Avengers. And I'll say this, it's crazy to me that a game that it's basically old recipe Uncharted is so refreshing these days. Like a game that's just a story that you kind of go through, and with very simple, fun gameplay, and with such great writing and characters. It's like, I'm so glad that Eidos Montreal, after they did Deus Ex, it's either Mankind Divided or Human, the last one they did, because then they did Tomb Raider, the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and then did this one.
Was the one.
Yeah, I'm glad that they did something that is so pure in a way. And here's what's fun: combat is like a simple mix of Uncharted style shooting with a little bit of like Metroid style lock-on, but also with the ability to control your character's Final Fantasy VII remake style, with like different ults and all that. You only play as one character. You play as Star-Lord.
Yeah.
But then like your characters all have like specific moves that you can always put when you hold the L1 bumper, and you mix and match that. And that to me adds a little extra dimension to the game that's just not just a normal run-of-the-mill third-person shooter. I love the tone. It feels like you're expanding on more of what the Guardians of the Galaxy movies did, but with the added advantage that you get more time with these characters. In between missions, you spend time in your ship. You can talk with Rocket, with Groot. Yeah, even though he always keeps saying, I am Groot. He says so much, I am Groot in this game. It's hilarious. Talking with Drax, talking with Gamora, and them being able to kind of step aside any uncanny valleyness of, man, these are not the MCU characters. It has like a more stylized look to it. That's not like the event. Yeah, that's a little bit more cartoony, but not quite cel shading. And I think that helps give this game its tone. I haven't finished it yet because I've been playing another stuff, but it's been like pretty refreshing to see that we may be getting back to this style of game, and it's been like well received instead of everyone wanting things to just be endless, huge, and all that. Kind of like what the IGN reviews said. It's like sometimes it's good to remember what it's like to play a no frills single player campaign story, especially one that's not easily beaten. I've heard that this can take up to 15 hours, and that to me is like that perfect good spot, middle spot of something that's not too short or not too long. Even though especially with Dread in this last few weeks, getting to play that for like 9 or 10 hours, that felt perfect to me for the kind of game it needed to be. But my mind and my desires have all been consumed by the Metroid franchise. After I beat Dread 2 weeks ago, I shoot up my emulator, went through Metroid Fusion again, with the one that I've always said it's my all-time favorite Metroid game, and basically the spiritual predecessor of Dread. That game is just as good as I remember, though Dread does age it quite a bit. I tell you, like the 360 movement of holding the bumper and being able to like aim, particularly that Dread and Samus Returns introduce. Like when you go back to Fusion or even Zero Mission that I also played, just having a direction diagonal shooting can really break you. So it took a little bit of an adjustment. Went through Metroid Fusion, beat it in 4 hours. I had never played Zero Mission, though I did appreciate, I mentioned it in our chats and I mentioned it in last week's debate, that Zero Mission is one of the few times that Metroid added an easy mode. So I actually went through the easy mode just to kind of test out and see if having an easier difficulty really broke that game, or would break the design as to them not including easy mode. No, it doesn't. What it gives you is a little bit more health, but exploration, that's just as quote unquote difficult as it can ever be. That you really need to find all your environment, like case analyze, notice that there's actual quality of life, noticing just some things that are off that kind of tells you where to go. Like with Kraid, like I mentioned, it's in two previous hallways. Find something that's just slightly correct and you go there. I beat that game in like almost 4 hours also, my first run through. enjoyed it a lot because Zero Mission is basically the first Metroid. I never played the original because playing through that NES version is rough, very rough. You can play it in the NES, in either the NES Classic or the NES from Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah.
That game will break you if you play it that way. I said Zero Mission is like the perfect kind of remake from that era for if you really want to see where everything started. That's where you play it. But then everything finally consumed me when I actually went back to the Metroid Prime series, the GameCube version. Metroid Prime is a game that I got back in 2002. Never had been able to finish it. Back then, I was too stupid. I was too gullible. I was too dumb to understand game language and exploration. Too not into the exploration side of games like Zelda I was able to break through. Metroid I never could. And playing them now, I was like, was I really that dumb? Because this isn't that complicated. And Metroid Prime, that game's a masterpiece. It still is, even till this day. That even 19 years later, that first game, seeing so much of its influence still resonating, even in games today. From the Batman Arkhams to the Tomb Raiders to even Jedi Fallen Order. And it being such a masterful exploration game that doesn't leave you hung up to dry. I appreciate how if you feel like you're lost, the game knows when to pop in your map, be like, you should go over here, and put like a question mark in a place and doesn't tell you anything else. You just know that, yeah, now I know I can go there. Maybe I can keep exploring here. The map is so well, like you could read it so well. And despite the archaicness of being kind of like a first-person shooter that doesn't have dual analog, when you really don't think it as a first-person shooter and think it more as an adventure game that's on first-person, kind of like in traditional Zelda way of like having the left trigger to focus, like target lock on, and then just press the attack button. It's easier to wrap your head around that instead of just wanting everything to be like a double stick. But I can see how, like PJ mentioned in our discussion, when he, back in the day, he first played Halo 3 and then went back to Metroid. That would be rough. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that game really grabbed me. I played it for like an entire week and I got close to 100%ing it. And I appreciated that it didn't have too much BS like some Metroid games have. Like we mentioned the boss for Metroid Dread.
Yeah.
However, thankfully, like I had never owned the second game. I have only had the first one and owned the third one, but never two. It like as a happenstance from heaven, something told me check Facebook Marketplace. Just for reference, if you want to buy Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which is the sequel, if you go to Amazon, that's retailing for $130. Because when those games get discontinued, they skyrocket in value. In fact, if you want to play the Metroid Prime Trilogy that came on Wii, that thing is retailing for $300. A price of a console to get that, because there's no way to acquire it unless you have a Wii U. That's a $20 digital download. I don't have a Wii U. I wish I did. Well, happy I didn't. That console was like a waste. But for the few that had, at least they had that option. I got into a Facebook Marketplace and saw someone was selling it for $45. I negotiated to drop it to $40. Got to buy Metroid Prime 2. So I was like, finally, the family's complete. I have it here. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah, I wish I had a real green screen for a background effect. And after I beat Metroid Prime 1, immediately, like the day after, I acquired it from this guy and started playing Metroid Prime 2. I would say I had read some things, I heard some things that Metroid Prime 2 was a Zelda Majora's Mask situation, a sequel that's harder and darker than its predecessor, and I would agree. Yesterday, I spent 2 hours fighting this stupid spider boss that almost made me want to break the controller. And it was difficult. I'll say this, Metroid Prime 1, you never have problems with its controls. When you get to 2, that's when you're like, why isn't there dual analog? That was the point where it's like, okay, maybe your design doesn't quite congrue with the idea that you can have like movement and vision in 2 different sticks here. Which, by the way, if you play it on Wii, you finally do, because they added basically dual analog there with a Wii controller. That game's tough. My God, like that game's tough in ways I haven't seen a game being tough. but also in a fair way. Metroid games can be like tough, but they know how to feel very rewarding when they finally you overcome them. And Dread felt like that with that final boss to me, but even though I would say the ways this game is tough have more of a problem with their controls in GameCube than you would think. So, but I'm in. Like I said, like the thing when you're playing Metroid, and I warn you that this with Zero Mission, you can't just stop playing and expect to come back and be like, yeah, I can pick this right back up. Prime 1, I tried doing this back in 2018 before I heard rumors that the collection may be coming to Switch, and I was like,
oh, that's right.
You know what? If a collection's actually happening that's gonna have like better bells and whistles and all that, I might as well wait. 3 years later, nothing in sight. I tried to go back to where I was and I didn't know, so I had to restart the whole thing. So that happened to me also with Metroid Prime 3 back on Wii. I was playing other games and decided to go back to that one. Completely got lost. I was like, I don't know what you want me to do here. I don't remember what was my objective. These games, they almost feel like a commitment. You gotta, if you're in, you're in. You can't like play. And I was playing all this before acquiring Resident Evil 8 and Guardians. It was so tough for me to try to jump into Resident Evil 8 and Guardians, knowing I could go back and play Metroid. And that's the thing. When a game really grabs you, there's something good to it. And because if I was hating it, I was like, I could have dropped it easily, but especially with that boss, I just kept going at it. And then I made the joke that beating it kind of gave me post-nut clarity. So, which, waiting for the month.
True.
No, not November. And I can't wait to see if there's more BS in that game. But I will say this, like, because you've been making a list, Paul, of like some series that you should try to go back to. And the Metroid Prime Trilogy is there.
Yeah. I made it almost as a meme.
Yes.
And when I looked back on it, I was like, I kind of really do need to go back and play all this.
Yes. And that's the thing, like Metroid Prime, kind of like what I did with Super Metroid, is such an influential game that I think deserves to be experienced. Yeah. And the original one, I feel it's not that hard. Like, it really isn't. And I really appreciating, and I also mentioned this in our text. It's funny that Metroid Prime and Zelda Wind Waker came out in the same year, because both games have a late game fetch quest. But on Metroid Prime, you see it done really well. And on Wind Waker, at least the GameCube version, you see it done not so well. Why I say that? That fetch quest can be accessed from almost the very beginning of Metroid Prime. So if you're diligent with exploration and all that, you can keep acquiring this. And the good thing is that the place that gives you that quest gives you hints, actual hints of where to find these places. In fact, it even colors your text of, go to this tunnel, go where it says in the where it says in the map, tunnel, and it's gonna be there. So there's not much. It's not too big as to be frustrating. And if you're diligent of where you are and you keep looking at that, you can keep doing as you go. And then by the end, when that's all that's left, you have like 2 things left, you can get them knocked out quickly, and then you're off to the boss fight. But then if you're not diligent, then you have all 12 of those things to look, and that could be a momentum killer. But it's great design to give you that thing early, especially when exploration is so satisfying in Metroid Prime, especially the way the map is designed. I think you would love that kind of map, because it's even were you big on the Jedi Fallen Order map?
Yes.
That one, the Metroid Prime one, is even better.
Turn, zoom in, zoom out.
You do exactly that in this one. Yeah. So I appreciate that. I don't know if Metroid Prime 2 has that kind of thing, but with its difficulty, that would be one that I would say only try it if you're feeling brave. Only try it if you want to deal with some extra frustrations, because Prime 2, I feel it's that kind of sequel that's better and worse than the original. I'm feeling the map design of 2 feels better. It feels like it flows a little bit more. It has a frustration that you have to go to a dark world, kind of like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. The only difference is, in that dark world, you lose health unless you're in specific light pockets that you have to shoot for them to like. So there's that annoyance. And some boss fights happen without one of those. When I was fighting this stupid spider boss to get this upgrade for a boost ball, Is what you get. It's you're getting like a speed boost for your when you're in ball mode in Metroid, in the Prime series. You fight this bastard in a place that has no light protection, so your health is constantly going down, and and you have to have like quick reflexes because the damage you get is super, like, it's a lot of damage. So it's the kind of precision. It's like, wow, this feels almost insulting. But again, when you beat it, it's like, oh my god, I beat this, I feel like a king. And I read, because after beating it, I had to go read. It's like, what is the hardest thing? And it was the thing and that happens early in the game. So I was like, thank Jesus. So that means it's not gonna be as bad. You get stomped early on. You get curb stomped by this stupid spider ing. But then 3, I've heard I played 3. I haven't finished it. 3 is so much easier because of the controls and all that stuff. I don't know any way you could play 3 because there's the rumors that Trilogy is no longer happening on Switch, and 3 is the kind of game that I wouldn't know how they would make it work because that was so intrinsically tied to the Wiimote. So, and they're very, like, look how clunky the solution was for Skyward Sword. They found a solution. It wasn't the best solution, but they found a way to make it work on handheld. If they want to make Metroid Prime 3 as, how can I say this?
Playable.
Not only as playable, but as true to the original experience as possible. The only way to play it is with 2 Joy-Cons out, and this right one had to be like aiming.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Nintendo wants to do it because they have found solutions. Even Mario Galaxy, that's a game that was so intrinsically tied to the Wiimote, they made it work. But I feel Prime 3 is so designed that it would be harder. And you know how Nintendo is the king of the minimal viable product in a way. So I don't know if they want to do that, considering they also work on Metroid Prime 4. But I feel it's a crime. There's no way to like modernly play those games unless it's on Wii U. And we know the Wii U, was a financial disaster for them. So, but it sucks that it's only there that you can reasonably play those games at a cheap price. The Trilogy there is $20. Why the F does everyone else have the audacity to price it at $300? But that's why I always say physical copies should just go the F out because of this crap. Because then when they get discontinued, how do you acquire them? Right. It's a miracle I got this. So it feels so nice. I get all 3 of these games.
That's what messes me up a little bit now because even for something like Samus Returns is only available really digitally, but I have yet to actually look and see if you can even buy it.
Mm-hmm. I think if it's digitally, like, you will. Digitally, yes, okay. You can, yeah.
Because I saw that, like, at least on like the GameStop website, they were like, oh, okay, it's digital and physical, and I was like, cool, physical. And it was like, okay, it's on sale right now for 18 whatever. And then I was like, all right, awesome, where is it? And they're like, we don't have any. Why was it on sale then?
Right, the scarcity. They should be sold out in the webpage. How hard is that?
Yeah. That was weird. And then of course digital version, they don't sell any of those directly because you'd have to have like a code for the game. So I guess the only option is I have to charge up my 3DS and then I have to go onto the store to see if I can buy it. But yeah. I don't know if I want to spend $40 on that.
Exactly, yeah. I justified the $40 for Metroid Prime 2 for a game from 2004, by the way, in 2021. Just for the reason that the market is selling it at $140 or $130.
I mean, you can turn around and turn a nice profit.
Yes, but that's the thing. I'm such a collector myself. Like, I still like. My brother doesn't have the reverence. Like, literally, he's selling his PS4 today because he just wanted to build his own PC now. Like, he doesn't have the reverence of owning stuff. I don't have that. It's very rare for me to sell something. The only reason why I even sold a few of my PS4 discs that I bought, like Knack and Killzone Shadowfall, is because I got a digital version of those games. So it's like I'm selling them, but it's like I'm not losing access to them. And even a bunch of PS3 games that I sold was because I have them on Xbox One backwards compatibility. So that's the only way I justify selling something. But if I'm gonna lose access to something, it's harder for me. I love collecting, so
I made the genuine mistake when I was younger to sell my Game Boy Color and almost all of the games that I owned for it. Most of like my brother's Game Boy Advance and a lot of games that we had for that as well, computer games, and like all of it was gone. And it wasn't until later that I realized the absolute mistake that I made by doing that. And I think I sold it to Game Trader for just pennies of what it would have been.
And that's the thing, when something's just worth pennies for where you're selling it, you might as well not do it. Obviously, there's the problem of maybe cluttering your closet and stuff, so that can be a problem. But in the Game Boy side, at the very least, I think one thing that mitigates it is the abundance of emulators and emulation. And like, for example, Metroid Fusion, such a great way to play that game through an emulation. I think the emulator you use for Zero Mission works pretty well.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo doesn't give a flying F about some game preservation sometimes, or the ways they can gouge you for money for the game preservation sometimes. At least, yes, it could be a mistake because then you don't play it in the native hardware, but for those very old games, I mean, at least there's a solution.
Yeah.
But then
I'm very glad that I found a working emulator that wasn't like I had to go into the ancient archives to find out how to code and get it to work right.
Exactly.
Thank God.
I got this close to figuring out how to mod my Wii so I could try to download the Metroid Prime Trilogy collection, but I was like, I don't want to go through that hassle because I could easily break it, and my Wii right now is like the only gateway for me to experience the GameCube because it's this straight still works somehow. And
I don't know where it is because I lost the laser reader for my Wii, and I haven't been able to get another one for it yet because those are starting to like pick up in price as well. And my GameCube I think works, but then like my audio visual cable for it disappeared. So
really?
I think one of my old roommates might have grabbed it thinking it was his like forever ago, but at this point it's like, what am I gonna do? Show up at his house and say, hey, you stole my cable.
So tomorrow I have an HDMI port for the Wii arriving at my house.
Ooh.
Because of the way my TVs are happening, because I have the blue, red, green cables.
Yeah.
And those are working on the TV I have now, but I'm looking into upgrading the TV I have in my room, or potentially the TV we have at our living room.
Yeah.
Those cables no longer are supported in the later end TVs. It's just HDMI.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? It's only $10. I'm getting this. So I can at least, if I ever want to play with my Wii in the later TV, because it's still alive and kicking, at least I have a port with a cable that works there. With the potential that games may look slightly sharper because HDMI versus the 3 cables, it's subtle, but it's an improved image. So I can't wait for that. It's coming tomorrow. The one thing I wish I still had was, do you remember the Wavebird controller for GameCube?
I think so. Why? I know the name, and now I gotta look this up.
Yeah, look it up. Wavebird, GameCube.
Yeah, that big old wireless sucker.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite controllers of all time. My brother lost the signal receiver, and it's there for ours. So I wish I still had it, because I tell you, the cable of a GameCube controller that plugs into a Wii, hella short. If only I could show you what I've done with my table where I have my Wii, so I can at least play Metroid while I'm laying down. It's like we have it so good these days with wireless controllers. I tell you, I could never go back. People would always make the argument, it's like, why would you want to go wireless? You always have to buy batteries, blah blah blah. And it's like, it's crazy now that wireless is like the way that you acquire a controller.
It blows my mind that Xbox still requires AA batteries.
Yes, I understand though. I've finally grown to understand why, because at the very least they future-proof themselves so that their controllers never die. You know what I mean?
How
if
so?
A rechargeable battery eventually loses its charge.
Yeah, I see what
but at the same time, it's a hassle. It's a hassle.
At that point, how many PS4 controllers did I go through just because eventually they would drift, break, not want to connect? The like something or other would kind of mess up with them anyway. So when that's your only problem,
I would
you
have
kind of have an replacement anyway.
Yeah, I will have to say that give props to Microsoft. The Xbox One controller, I gotta give it props. How resilient those suckers are. Like you can do. I have it here with me. Like
Yeah.
do all this with the sticks, and guaranteed they're not gonna drift. At least not in PlayStation. Like PlayStation is more likely for it to drift in comparison. So. And also, by the way, playing Metroid Fusion with the Xbox One controller through emulation was chef kiss. It worked so well.
What I'm doing for Zero Mission, and
I told you to play with the Xbox controller.
Yeah, I mean that's the only one that you can easily plug into the PC and play anyway. Because God forbid you try to plug a PlayStation controller.
Now, quick question: does your computer have Bluetooth?
That is a good question, actually.
You should, because my computer had Bluetooth and I was able to play with my Xbox controller via Bluetooth.
That's something I can pull up on the taskbar. Yeah, okay, I have it.
There you go. Try to register your Xbox controller via Bluetooth, and there you go. You don't have to have it plugged in.
Well, I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose just because I'm sitting in front of the computer anyway. But yeah, I could always try doing that. Would I hit the... Well, you know, we'll figure that out after we stop recording.
Yes. But yeah, that's enough of that. That's been what I have been playing. And since we are not doing a topic this week, to kind of take a little break from topics, that concludes this section of the podcast. Paul, where can people find you?
As always, everyone, you can find me both with my art and hilarious takes on things at Dork of Art on Twitter, and then at YouTube Dork of Art as well. Mostly older items, but also you can sometimes find me at AngelSword21 on Twitch. Alejandro, where can we find you?
They can find me at the Slayer Giant on Twitch, which, by the way, like circumstances have prevented us from keeping our Halo playthroughs, but we should be able to get those back in no problem. You can find me on Twitter at @A_DorSegovia. You can find me on Instagram at AlejandroSegovia93, and you can find some of my written content at thecriticalcorner.com. Haven't done much writing, but I'm already cooking my Call of Duty article that I told you that I was writing, because I played through all those campaigns. So, and it could be a topic, an evergreen topic sometime. So,
that's true.
Especially with Vanguard coming out this Friday, which I am not buying. So,
me neither.
Yes, at least until sale. So, Paul, it's been a pleasure, and remember,
press X
to play.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, kitten.